Hello babes, welcome to your practice. I'm standing, I know it's radical. Today we are going to explore tree pose, and this is suitable for beginners or anyone really. All my videos are suitable for anyone. You adjust your seasoning depending on if you're feeling spicy or mild. So you will need a floor and yourself and possibly a wall or something to lean on, or like a chair if you're feeling a little bit unbalanced today, or if you're feeling like you've got lots on your mind, because that tends to affect balance. So when it comes to explaining or breaking down yoga postures, I can see there's a lot of value in it for many people. Often I get reluctant to do it because I really feel like there's not really any proper way to do anything. I think it's very much about your adventure, your journey, and I don't like to tell people what to do, but I'm going to offer you maybe some pointers that might bring some value to your adventure with tree pose. So let's just see what happens. So tree is a balancing pose, and it can be quite intimidating, especially if you're first coming to yoga, needing to stand on one leg, especially if you've got tight hamstrings or have challenges with maneuvering hips. So first things first, when it comes to balancing poses, try not to get too hung up on something needing to look perfect. In fact, this goes for all yoga. Maybe you can start by just experimenting with standing on both of your feet and swaying the weight from side to side. So obviously, if you can stand, you're probably pretty skilled at being able to shift your weight, because that's how we walk and that's how we do different things as we maneuver our way through life. But when it comes to perhaps considering balancing poses, it might be useful to really take your attention to your feet and notice, is there a particular pattern of standing that I have? Asking yourself that question. So if you come to a standstill, release your arms, maybe close your eyes or look towards the floor and just take your attention to your feet. Is there a way that you're leaning more into one side than the other? It might be useful just to think about that, because as we start to move into a posture, it's really vital that we just check in with where we're at rather than trying to change anything, so that we can consider if there is a tendency to maybe hang in the left side of the body or the right side, or if we're feeling that our knees are kind of twerking in some way, or if we feel a little bit weaker in one side of the body than the other. It's not a bad thing, it's what makes us human. So just start where you are with what you've got. Be okay with there being a difference if you've discovered a difference. If you're even and over the age of 25, you and I need to have a talk about what you do in life that makes you so balanced and even. Okay, so we'll move on from here. I know this might seem cumbersome, but really to me yoga isn't about getting yourself into a position and that's that, the magic happens. I think the magic comes from your own interpretation and your relationship with what's going on with your body. So let it be just that, a relationship. And then maybe you can start to shift weight again from one foot to the other. And then think about lifting up one knee, maybe just hovering a foot. And just noticing what's going on, switching sides. So it's really important as you play with this, going from one foot to the other, it's really important to remind yourself that balance is always shifting. There's nothing static about it. So perhaps if you bring the weight to your right foot, lift up the left foot, you might notice if you take your attention to your foot is kind of going, woo, all kinds of crazy, because that's what balance is. It's kind of shifting, adjusting. Switch sides again. Left foot grounds, right knee lifts. If you can, press even more into the left foot, lift up the right knee. So there's so many different factors that influence the way that we are able to balance. Switch sides again. And it might not just be the foot, but the foot is our foundation, so we're starting with that. Appreciating that it is shifting, Doesn't have to be static. And then releasing that. Take a moment, feel into both feet. Sometimes that's enough in our balancing practice, just to simply play one side then the other, just to get into our feet. Nice. Now lift up the toes and really spread them out. You might be able to feel the four corners of your feet, base of the big toe, base of the little toes, either side of your heel. See if you can really ground into that. It might reverberate. You might notice there's a connection with everything. You might feel that reverberate up to your knees, up to your hips, maybe even higher as you begin to engage. So it's really vital, I think, in thinking about our foundations by using our feet. There's a lot of value. There's a lot of amazing lessons that we can learn just from the way that we stand, and show up in the world. So with the toes spread, keep them spread and bring them back down to earth. Keep distributing that weight through both feet. Nice. And the action here is a kind of, you might well feel the inner thighs are kind of rolling backwards. The tailbone is gently rolling down. Shoulders can roll back and down. Chin moves in. Neck gets long. So essentially we start from the foundations and then we build on that, so we ensure that the rest of the body is working most efficiently to support ourselves, because often we tend to move about the world and carry a particular posture that might not be so helpful, and that's when we can run into, I don't know, maybe unhelpful uses of energy in the way that we move. So find a way to stand. And then let's try that balance again. So bend the knees, this time shift the weight into the left foot. See if you can lift up the right foot. You can use your hands here, you can reach them out. So lean the weight into the right foot. And if you're wobbling, be okay with wobbling. In fact, maybe you can encourage yourself to wobble a bit more and then appreciate what your body does to bring itself back to center. So keep the standing knee bent as you experiment with kind of, whoa, hey. I don't know what that was. Very 90s, going to a football match. No offense. Okay, swap sides now into your right foot. I just can't stop. Anyway, experiment. Notice as you're experimenting with this movement through the right foot, are you holding your breath? It's very common, it's very normal. Don't beat yourself up about it. Are you clenching your jaw? If you are, what can you do to soften? What can you do to breathe better, support yourself better? Come back to both feet. Take a moment, once again. Press into both feet, so reground. All right. Next, keep the left foot grounded. If you need to, you can do it as many times as you like. Lift up the toes, spread them out, bring them back down to earth. Left foot stays grounded. Turn the right toes out like a ballet dancer and point the toes towards the right side of the room. If you can, bring the heel down to the floor and then just feel with your hands around your hips. Okay, so there's a kind of opening. It's just the word, it's just a label, an opening of the hips. Okay, so what tends to happen is that we lean weight into the left side. So notice if you're doing that and collapsing weight into the hip, and press into the left foot and hug the left foot in, the left hip in rather. Nice, so you're grounded evenly through both feet, hopefully. Okay, doesn't matter if you're not, things change, okay? Nice, then step the right foot back and then we'll do the other side. So turn the left toes out so you can probably feel the hip changes direction. Bring the heel down to the floor, and as you do that, it's very common to load in to the right hip. So you can even feel with the right hip as you draw the energy to make it more centered, to balance. Hopefully, through your feet, you'll feel there's a bit more evenness there, hopefully, okay? So come back to center again, okay? So now we'll move into slightly more dynamic balance. So if you need, lift up the toes, spread them out, bring them back down to earth. Pick up the right knee, okay? And at this point, if you're feeling really wobbly, it's useful to have a wall or a chair nearby just to experiment. You might notice at this point there can be loading in the hip, so you know what to do, hug it in. Turn the knee out this time, just like you did with your foot, okay? And then bring the toes to the floor, heel to the low leg, okay? So similar but slightly different. You can keep hands on the hips if that's useful to you. Again, press into the feet, see if you can unload from the hips point forward if possible. And then feel there, if that's feeling interesting, then stay with that. Energetically, we're thinking about that right knee just moving away from the hip. So you might feel a stretch through the groin, people feel it in different places. If you're sturdy, take the foot up a little higher, just to the low leg. Try and avoid the knee joint, just because the knee joint is pretty volatile, not so sturdy. So as you start to lift the foot up, the balance gets trickier. That's very normal. So root through your base, hug the hip in. So how can you work, or how can you stand more efficiently? Breathe as best as you can. Hands can stay on the hips, or palms can come together. Those of you that are feeling pretty okay with your balance, you can lift that right foot up, bring the sole of the foot to the inside of the left thigh, and then again, think about the way that you're standing. So start with the foundations, ground the four corners, then think about that hip. Are you loading, or can you distribute the weight? Can you distribute the energy so that it can be more efficient, more balanced? Doesn't mean we don't necessarily wobble. I'm definitely wobbling, and that's okay. Think about the knee, the thigh moving away from you, down and away. Hips kind of pointing forward. So there's different schools of thought. As always, there's a lot of politics in yoga. So do it the way that you want to do it. Sometimes it's nice to roll that top hip back, but lately in my practice, I'm kind of having the hips pointing forwards. For me, that's just more interesting. A more interesting sensation around the groin. That's enough. So palms can come together at the chest. If you're really feeling super balanced, try reaching the arms up. Again, by adding these kind of stepping stones to the posture, we're kind of making it 100 times more hard with each step. So know that you can always go back. Lovely. When you've had enough, gently remove the foot, bring the knee forward, and then stand on both feet. Take a mo, feel into that. It's not uncommon to feel a bit imbalanced, quite normal. And then we'll do the other side. So stand in the right foot, lift the left knee up, turn the knee out, toes come to the floor, heel rests against lower leg. So find that center. And if balance is a real challenge for you, maybe consider if you've had a challenging day, a really busy day, especially with the brain, tends to affect balance. If you're feeling okay, lift the foot up a little. Keep hugging in. So everything working together to center. And then those of you feeling pretty steady can take the left foot to the inside of the right thigh. It might feel different from one side to the other. Try and be okay with that. Nice. If you're wobbling around, a nice way to settle that energy is to focus on something on the ground that's not moving. That often helps, but not always. Maybe you reach the arms up, soft jaw. Remember to keep breathing. Breathe in any way that feels most comfortable, most spacious. Nice, and then gently release that. So unhook the sole of the foot, knee turns forward, both feet planted on the ground. Take a couple of breaths there. You did amazing. Thank you so much for exploring this posture with me. If you've got some thoughts or questions at all, just plonk them down below. Hope I can help. Here's the balancing and nothing ever being in balance and being okay with it. See you soon. Bye.